information from the Florida Division of Forestry. And I could try to communicate, probably Blake Josephson, the forester, would have access to that. So I doubt we're gonna find too many champion trees. What do you think, Keith?
It's hard to say.
What is the champion tree?
It's the largest of their species.
So that's the name?
It's kind of vague, isn't it? They're the largest of their species in the United States.
The champion tree is just what called champion tree, like a live oak or.
We may have some champion, cypress trees. I don't remember seeing it really, but we have to be prepared to wait out. Photograph them. Oh, we can photograph.
Yeah, we
them
need to photograph.
with our phones, yeah. Okay, yeah, because I think we should be making a file on this that will be useful in
For the next generation.
Right. So, okay. Well, that's exciting.
Yes.
Can you be there, Cynthia? Or are you dealing with children?
That is expected.
Pat can catch up with us when she wakes up and has her coffee.
Yes.
And her breakfast and her shower.
I'll be the first person.
And she lives in the area of the park, so she can find us. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how much work it is, how much time it takes, and how much we're willing to give it. But I'm excited. That's something I've been wanting to get going for a long time.
Do we need to make a motion on it? No?
Oh,
I
good.
have a question for Mr. Harris.
What?
Mr. Harris, do you have a map? I don't care if the trees are marked on it, just what it looks like. You said the trees aren't on it, but do you have a map?
I'm trying to
A
get you something.
diagram, not a map, a diagram.
I'm trying to get you something.
A map of Crescent
I'm
City?
trying to get you some
Oh,
maps.
Thank you.
well, because it would be easier than just running out there and trying to figure out where the tree is. We're gonna mark an X, a Y, and Z. But if you had your schematic outline, diagram of the park, then we could mark it on there.
And take
You know,
photos.
we probably need about 100 of them because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of changes.
You're getting quick.
All right, we'll take that.
So,
You might be
can you
wanting to
meet us
get out
on
my
March
copy.
1st at 8:30 at Eagle Lions Park with those maps in hand?
When?
March 1st,
Next week.
8:30.
I'll try.
Next
Okay.
week, Wednesday.
Okay, and anything you'd like, Karen might find us, she's,
Look at what Cindy found.
So this is Google Earth images of it, I mean, if we put it out on a bigger.
But even if you want to, you can have them go up to what we need.
Yeah, I've been trying to get them, but the engineer that we use,
uh-huh.
they have all that
Yeah,
in their
well, maybe,
office.
you know,
And they can print them on them big maps, and it's just a layout of the city with nothing on it but the roads.
We can
and
access.
cars.
Know how big that is and write it on the.
I mean, I can print some small ones, but you can't do nothing with them.
So here's a view from Google Earth of the park.
That's Google Earth. Google
Or that's just Google.
Yeah.
And we all have our phones, we can have the map in our hands,
Right.
all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything more we need to talk about that? About our survey starting? Yay! Oh, I put it in paper.
So we're gonna start with the Eagle Park, okay?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Right down across from you.
This does have to be advertised.
Pardon?
You know, this does have to be advertised.
It does have to.
It does? Okay, oh,
You're calling it an activity, a workshop, or a meeting?
how do you advertise it?
Workshop, you wanna call it a workshop?
I think it's a workshop.
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want.
Okay.
Of course,
Just call it.
a survey. Yeah. Okay, does that mean that the public is invited to come? Get out of here. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I didn't hear what you said.
It has to be advertised.
Why?
Because because you're a board.
Oh,
That's right.
we're just not a group of friends looking at trees, okay? So we have more,
Work
session.
Clap, whatever that word is. Yeah, so like Lisa could come to this meeting, I suppose that means anybody who's interested can come and watch us measure trees. Put in their 2 cents worth. Okay, all right, Miss Liz, what are you gonna tell us about Spanish moss?
I was gonna tell you a couple of facts. I have a lot of facts, but, the most important ones that I learned was that the Spanish moss is related to the pineapple family and to the Bromeliaceae. It receives nutrients from older dying trees that are shredding dead cells. It's not harmful for the trees because when I first moved here, I told everybody, my husband wanted to get rid of all the Spanish moss because he said it was bad. But after I did this research, I found out that Spanish moss is actually good for trees, you know? The only time that it breaks branches is when the branches are dying and dead, and because it soaks water, that's why it will, break the branch. And it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. Is a wildlife refuge. It was used in stuffing beds and saddles back in the Civil War because it is conductive of airflow. Also, something that I found too is does not grow in polluted areas. So if you have a lot of Spanish moss in your city, it means you have great air quality in your town. That is very nice to know.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
Cows and horses love to eat it.
Really? Wow, I saw this here
Cows and
too.
horses love to eat it.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's given to the animals. Fodder for livestock, is that what fodder means? Fodder.
Fodder.
Yes. So 3,000 years ago, the Indians used it for firing arrows. It's still used in 2 tribes in Louisiana today to make small dolls and decorations. And I have some little show and tells over there, the names that it was called by the Indians, bear, white bear and all that, because it reminded the Indians of the conquistadors. So they named it that.
Old
bear.
man's beard.
Yep. It's a natural sponge. You can use it, like you said, for plants because it absorbs water, nutrients, and bedding, and you can boil it for tea, all kind of stuff.
It's got red bugs in it.
You first have to knock the bugs for a few minutes on the microwave. And those are called sugars, and I can tell you something interesting about sugars. Sugars are,
Yeah, we all got them.
they are arachnids, 8-legged creatures related to ticks and spiders, not insects, and they do not normally live in Spanish moss, but rather in grasses and low shrubs. Living near the ground allows them to move easily into the Spanish moss that falls on the ground. So it gets into the Spanish moss when it's on the ground, it's not on the tree.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you pick it up, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there used to be a thriving industry, people would pull the moss and sell it.
Yes, yes, I have it on my
So
notes.
plants.
Car upholstery for cars and things like that.
I saw a gentleman back in the summer pulling from those big trees across from Lake Stella, and he was sending it to Massachusetts for sale. He was cleaning the tree clean, I'm like, oh. So we had an idea that maybe this young lady that goes to the farmer's market, she's 19, homeschooled, and she wrote this book about Balloon's journey, if we could work with her to talk about Spanish moss and trees. If she could she self-published this little book. She sells them for $10, and I can pass it along so you can, her name is Janie.
I wonder if she's related to Nicole Grace.
I don't know, but
Because I'm beautiful girl.
maybe she is Janie Grace. I think her middle name is Grace. So she came to Arbor Day and she wrote the books and she was part of the puppeteers. And she's 19 and I would like to get her involved in things in town because she's so gifted.
Where does she live?
I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, Nicole lives in Palatka. You know, she's a king from. So I was wondering, if Grace is an unusual name. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I have another thing that the downtown partnership wanted to ask you, Pat, and our Ranger Blake. They are gonna have, the 22nd of April, Lake Fest, Spring Fest. And they wanted to know if you and Ranger Blake would like to do the same thing we did for Arbor Day. That day, it's on a Saturday, talk about trees, talk about moss.
You had that wonderful, game.
Yes.
That, you played, but you got a prize, didn't you?
Yes, but I was wondering if we could contact him with plenty of time and see if he would like to come.
Sure. Yeah, call for it.
Yeah, these balloons are very dangerous. When I worked at the car dealership in Crystal River, we wasn't allowed to put up balloons.
Yeah, especially the Mylar balloons.
Yeah, they go right in the
All
ocean,
over the ocean.
and
Yeah.
the fish are attracted to red for some reason, and then they die.
Yeah, we could sell it probably at the, farmer's market. She could sell that, but at the
Yeah.
farmer's market, that would be a real.
We could sell bags of Spanish moss.
I don't know if you're gonna anybody in Crescent City to buy.
They used to kill it with
I'll
copper.
tell you a funny story. So we lived in Norman Beach, on Beachside, and we had two beautiful old oak trees covered with moss. Well, it began to appear that the moss was so thick that it was changing the lower limbs and they weren't getting any sun and they were not looking good. So we paid somebody to come and spray with copper sulfate, which indeed killed the moss. And then we had trees full of dead moss. You need to have a two-phase operation. You need to have some monkeys coming to climb the trees.
It's
and
easier,
pull all the dead
it's
moss
easier to get
down.
someone with a cherry bucket and
Yeah.
just go in there and pick it off.
Yeah, so.
Here in my
Don't
notes,
get tempted, anybody, to get your moss.
in my
sprayed.
notes, it said to rub Spanish moss with Spanish moss, and it will kill it.
To do what?
To rub it with each other, and that will kill it. Something about the,
Giant tree, yeah, you can do that.
I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's what it said in my notes, Google.
Yeah, okay, well, if everybody's all right with it, I will call Blake Josephson, the county forester, and see if he can bring his,
April 22nd, 9 to 3.
where they're gonna do that.
They're gonna do it, I think it's over there by Farmers Market, Leon's Park. We don't have the location yet. We still need the planning and today meeting to plan, but I can send you the information.
Okay, good.
They wanna do it an activity for children.
Okay, are you gonna also do some of your things?
I have to work the Farmers Market and I have to work the Spring Fest. So I will not be there, but if I can get away, I will
That's what.
talk about the Spanish moss again.
You know, you said Spring Fest was, you said you're gonna have to work it, and that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
to be there.
I have to work it, but it's with the downtown partnership.
Yeah.
So they asked me to ask you guys, you and Blake, if they will, you guys would like to do the talk about trees and Spanish moss.
Yeah.
But I can tell them that I will do this, the Spanish moss
Well,
thing.
what about some of the games that you had at Arbor Day?
They already have like tug of war, sack racing, they have all their activities.
Tiny.
Doggies, in a pond and get prizes. Rachel Kavanagh, she's gonna be involved with the kids' activities.
Yeah, okay, oh, good, okay. Okay, any further remarks about Spring Fest? That sounds fun, I'd love to do that. Commissioner DeVito has some changes needed to our tree ordinance that she would like to share. This is as a commissioner, not a citizen, or a
No,
citizen.
this is
concerned
just
citizen.
Lisa, concerned citizen. Okay, and I apologize, this is handwritten, and it's not stapled. My printer quit communicating with my laptop, and then it quit turning on at all. And so I'm going to tell you about this.
Okay, before you start, Karen, we have a big packet of things about the Palm Coast
I'll explain.
tree
That's me.
protection, that's Lisa's.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know there was something else separate from that. Okay.
Somebody may have two. That's one.
I think I got you a good copy, if you wanna use this one for copy.
Okay, so thank y'all very much for letting me be on the agenda.
Lisa, I'm gonna ask you,
You can't hear me?
you can
Okay.
please remove the mask. I have just a hard time, even with my hearing aids, hearing.
Okay, so here I go. Lisa King DeVito, I'm here not as a commissioner, I'm here just as a concerned resident and a past member of the tree board. To share with you, basically what in the past the tree board has identified, and just for the benefit of people who are new, during COVID, the tree board quit meeting for about a year and a half. All quote unnecessary meetings were just, tree board meetings were not held. So anything that the tree board had on the table before COVID was put on hold for about a year and a quarter, year and a half. If you wonder why things were talked about and then nothing happened. Anyway. Oh, and also, the city has commissioned a revision of its land development code. And when our city manager gave an update on that, he said that the revision is in process with the planners that work for the city. When they're done with the draft, it will come to the tree board and the planning and zoning commission to review. So I thought this might be a good time to highlight some things that in the past, both the tree board and I and other people in our community have said that is missing from our current ordinance, and either should be added ASAP or perhaps could be added when the planners come up with whatever they're coming up with. There was one more thing I wanted to say. Well, anyway, so our tree ordinance, the main part is chapter 18.5 in the Crescent City ordinances. Oh, I know, I'm about to explain what's in your folder. There are some other cities nearby that have more complete or more updated or more protective ordinances than we do. The Palm Coast one is thought to be pretty good. It was recommended to us a few years ago by our former county extension agent, Chrissy Fletcher, who's now moved on. I think this ordinance has been updated since Chrissy Fletcher recommended it because I could not find some provisions that I wanted. What I sent was the Palm Coast tree ordinance and as well, just something that they had posted online about their pruning regulations. This is really for your reference. There are other cities that I've looked into that have complete and more, I guess, updated. By updated, I mean to meet the needs of modern society. DeLand and also I believe Winter Garden. But that one is just there for you to look at your leisure. And also I might mention a couple of things that I got out of the Palm Coast tree ordinance. But if you would turn your attention to the 3 pages that are handwritten that I just handed out, this is what I'm going to go over and it's really the highlights. So first I'm going to highlight the protections that we currently have in our Crescent City tree ordinance and where they are. So mainly our tree ordinance protects heritage trees, and as your chairman just mentioned, those are the ones that are 30 inches in diameter or 7 feet 10 inches in circumference at 4.5 feet above ground level. And that's in code section 18.5.1 in the definitions. And then also they're specifically protected in 18.5.6. So another protection is that when there is development, when there is development that's going to require a site plan, development plans, and subdivision plans that require the approval of our planning and zoning board or commission, whatever it's called, under our land development code 5.2, there is supposed to be a consultation with the tree board and evaluation of the trees on the site. And the tree board is supposed to give its advice and issue tree permits for site plans. I don't know Crescent City has ever used that. As well, and this is the key, in 18.5.6, Crescent City requires a tree permit to either remove or to prune a heritage tree. And that's the one that is big around, okay? And in some cases requires replacement with smaller trees when removal is the only alternative, and all those details are in the ordinance. As well, and this is really interesting, 18.5.3 prohibits something called tree topping. And Mr. Harris, this pertains to you. It's prohibited for public trees except in certain circumstances, and mainly if there's a damaged tree and they want to leave a snag for wildlife, you can cut off the damaged top. So tree topping, which I'll talk about later, really, that's when you basically mangle the tree canopy and cut off most of the branches so that the tree can't really make chlorophyll and it's going to be damaged to the point that it'll probably die. That only applies to public property, not private property. So here we are protecting trees, but the topping issue only applies to public property. So, so the next part that I really want to talk about is what are the gaps in our ordinance as far as what is really needed to protect the tree canopy for a city, which if you heard the Arbor Day proclamation, there's all kinds of benefits of having healthy trees in your city. They prevent soil erosion, they help provide oxygen, they provide habitat for wildlife. So the first problem is our tree ordinance is of an older model, and it only protects trees that reach that 30 inches in diameter, 4.5 feet above ground. Most species of trees do not get that big, ever. So what that means is that aside from live oak trees and a few water oak trees, we're really not protecting the kind of trees that you want in your canopy, like majestic pine trees. Takes them a long time to get that big. Magnolia trees, cedar trees, cypress trees. You're really mainly only protecting live oak trees. And I know one of the things that the 2005 survey by Davey Tree Survey, they recommended that we have more of a variety of trees in our city. Well, if you're only protecting the very largest live oaks, that does not promote that variety. Because there's all kinds, well, for example, the plaque hollies, you could go on and on. So, and as well, when the engineering company was here and they were putting in the multi-use trail, one of the supervisors remarked to me that we needed to think about putting in new trees underneath the big old trees that are aging out. I mean, if you don't provide for new trees to come up, this is my second point, this is 2B, we don't really provide for protections to develop a future canopy. If you only protect your big trees and you let people cut down everything on their lot that's not hugely mature, that's why many cities have updated their ordinances so that, and Palm Coast is like this, they protect trees of a smaller size, and you can read about that in there, to create things like shade, prevent soil erosion, and provide for a healthy canopy to give us all oxygen. And this isn't exactly a defect of our ordinance, but it's a defect of how Crescent City administers our ordinance. Most people in town do not know that a permit is needed to prune a heritage tree. So in other words, if you've got a big live oak tree and it's extending over, say a city tree is extending over private property, most residents do not know that they should have a permit, approval from the tree board as to what they're going to prune. And sadly, this means that they could like lop off a whole huge branch over their property and cause the tree, they could do it incorrectly and introduce disease. They could cause the tree to become weakened, et cetera, et cetera. So that's,
but
Yeah.
if the tree, the heritage tree is totally on their property,
No, I'm saying, if
they can
it's,
cut it down if they want to, right?
no, they have to get a tree permit.
Lisa,
Yeah.
I saw something that when you burn a tree, you put on it and it protects it.
Wait, put what, put on?
I can't remember, I have to ask my daddy, but I know when we burn trees, he always put it on it, so it wouldn't kill that tree.
Well, I don't know about that. Okay, Pat?
I'm still confused.
No,
I thought that the tree ordinance only referred to trees on city property.
no,
No,
absolutely
that
not.
was my understanding.
I thought they passed a state law stating that if arborist deems that tree bad,
That's a whole different issue. That's a whole different issue.
yeah, but they can cut it down.
That's a whole different issue, and the state law was updated last year. So the law that you're talking about, that's no longer current. No, no,
How do we find, that law?
I sent it to the city manager.
Okay.
I sent the 2022 statute update. Our tree ordinance is not invalidated. It is not invalidated, and our okay, what you're talking about that only applies to public trees is the tree plan that the tree board is supposed to do. The tree ordinance applies to heritage trees, whether they are on public or private property.
When people move into town, do they get a copy of that or somebody come and tell them?
No, I can verify
That's a
that.
good idea, that's a good idea to have this information for newcomers.
Right, so the distinction I'm trying to make is, for example, along Main Street, there are large oak trees that are, the trunk of the tree is on city property, but the branch goes over, whatever. Or say if the tree is on someone's property, people do not realize that the permit for a heritage tree is needed for pruning as well as removal. Okay, and so what I'm saying is, that is a protection currently in our ordinance that protects the heritage tree, because ideally, you don't want somebody to go scalping the tree, then it's really no longer a tree. So yes, there's education that could be helpful there. Because most people just don't know that. I thought I saw Miss Wheeler raise her hand. She doesn't. But also when you look at our tree permit, it's a tree removal permit, and it really should be, if you're gonna follow the ordinance, tree removal or pruning. Okay, so let's see, that was page 2 of 3. And again, the third page, 2E, tree topping is not prohibited for trees on private property, as it is for public property. And this is where I'm referring to the Palm Coast ordinance. They have in their definitions, they have all kinds of pruning that are not allowed, because they call it's unscientific pruning. They call it effective removal, where the tree is disfigured and the canopy is removed. And I'll give you some examples. I think in front of South State Bank, on North Prospect Street, behind South State Bank, you can see there's a tall, skinny trunk, and there's no limbs on it, and there's some little sucker branches coming out. This tree, in Palm Coast, they would call that effective removal, because somebody just went, they peeled it like a carrot. They took all the branches off. The poor tree is trying to survive, but this is really, and of course, that wasn't a heritage tree. But if you were going to protect smaller trees, you would, well, it's just, tree topping is not a good idea. And there's another example over on Orange Avenue, near Pine Street and Main Street. There's what was a beautiful cedar tree, and it's just a trunk. And again, it's been peeled like carrots.
Sometimes that's a power company that,
It wasn't the power company.
yeah, but I mean, when they want to do it, do we have any?
Okay, well, this is the interesting thing. The power company, because I've talked to them a couple years in a row, and I'm going to refer to this, they follow the AINSI standards, which I can never remember what that is. We have a book somewhere, hopefully, in the city files about it. There are scientific standards that apply to tree trimming. The power company follows those, but they do have to clear our power lines. And no, we can talk to them, but we can't get in the way of them clearing it. But they actually hire certified arborists and who oversee and approve and train the people who do the trimming. So tree topping, that's not a good idea. We don't have anything in our ordinance about tree topping. Although if it's a heritage tree, you really should be getting a permit just to even prune. Just we don't publicize that. In the Palm Coast ordinance and in that little just website thing, they actually have protections and standards for correct trimming of palm. And if you've been on the tree board for a long time, you know that palm is not a tree, it's a grass. Extension agent Chrissy Fletcher told us that. And they have pictures on their website. I don't know if it's in the materials that I passed out, but the excessive trimming of palms where you just carrot top it is a good way to kill a palm. You're supposed to leave greenery.
They killed the one right here.
I haven't done that. I mean, we don't know for sure, but
It's good, but I was gonna say
Yeah.
that my neighbor, he's got a beautiful palm,
Yeah.
and they're gonna cut down, it's gonna make that little shabby thing in the garage. And I didn't know if the city wanted it, he said that would be great to put there, he'd love to save that tree, because they grow an inch a year.
I don't know, y'all need to talk about that. But anyway, we don't have any, Palm Coast has standards for correct pruning of palms. We do not have any requirement, say you're giving out a tree permit, we don't have any requirement to follow those AINSI standards or have an ISA certified arborist to prune protected heritage trees. And that's a problem because, and ISA means International Society of Arboriculture. Those are arborists who have taken tests and meet certain standards and have a certain level of knowledge. So we don't require that either for public or private property. This is a good one. Palm Coast requires anyone cutting trees above a certain height. I think if you need a ladder, and I think it's in that material I gave you, you have to have like $1 million insurance policy so that you don't cause damage either to the homeowner or to somebody's car or to the neighbor's house. And we had a situation here over on Pine Street several years ago where people with no license, no nothing, swinging from the trees, and they dropped a tree and destroyed the neighbor's fence and trees on both the owners and the neighbor's property. So, I mean, it makes sense. You're going above a certain height, trees are heavy, anything can happen. So we don't have that. And as well, something that really bothers me is we have, in fact, I was gonna copy this and give it to you. I'll copy it and give it to Karen. This was in my door the other day, my screen door. My husband and I came back and found it there. It says, so-and-so tree experts. A lot of people say they're tree surgeons or arborists, whatever. They cut trees. They don't really have any training. They don't, and they give out advice. And some of it's like people who want to put siding on your house. They tell people all this stuff about you need this, you need that. And it's not necessarily true. In fact, sometimes they butcher the trees. So these people go door to door with no permit or no knowledge of ordinance, giving out unqualified advice. And, I'm not exactly sure how to address that, but certainly requiring, I think in Crescent City, people are supposed to have a permit to go door to door and solicit. I'm not 100% sure about that. Talked about it before in other circumstances, but to me, there's a problem with people going door to door and telling folks they need certain things that are not true and representing themselves as having expertise that they don't have. So you have a copy of what I talked about. You have a copy of the Palm Coast Ordinance. I just gave it out as something for y'all to think about and take under advisement. And I did want to say one thing about Liz Gomez's wonderful presentation about the moss, where she said it's a refuge for wildlife.
Squirrel's nest in it.
What nest?
Squirrel's nest.
Squirrel's nest, and also I read, you know, we have people putting bat houses around town. I was reading up on bats, and actually bats nest in the moss. Sometimes, yes.
It's probably warm in the one.
Could be, so that's one more important, and of course, bats are beneficial because they eat the mosquitoes and all that. So anyway, so there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We will take all of this under advisement and, probably make some amendments to the pre-plan next time it's presented. I'm still a little puzzled about how you enforce these things. They're recommendations and they're obviously good ones. But unless you've got some kind of law, really, that says, if we see you cutting down a tree, we're going to come arrest you, it's problematic. So if Charles were here, he might could address some of that, but, for now, anybody have any comments?
I was thinking that, when you go to Disney, you know, and sometimes you're gonna ride a ride and they have like a loop video that goes on and on. I wonder if we could make a video addressing these things for people coming to pay gas or water, you know, or coming to visit Karen. And the loop plays, you know, and people can listen to it. I don't know if that will work, you know.
How would you get Keith to make it? Would you like to be a star, a movie star?
I'm already a star. You
I can
ain't
make
got
it
to worry about it.
I can make you famous.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Liz. That sounds like a lot of work too, right now. Okay, well, at this point, we are going to meet March 1st at Eagle Lions Park. And when is our next regular meeting? You have that calendar?
Yes, ma'am.
This is four,
March 23rd.
okay?
March 23rd is your regular meeting date.
March 23.
At 1,
Okay, Karen's got it. March 23, we shall meet once more.
at 1 o'clock, right?
Pardon?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, yeah, it's always at 1 right here. Okay, is there any further business? If not, meeting's adjourned. We made it, look at that clock. Thank you all for all your work.
Thank you, Lisa, for all your hard work.
I
Thank
think
you,
we're
Lisa.
gonna have fun.